Mic check, 1 2 1 2. Ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? Welcome back. We got the mic check out early today. Today we're going to be looking at this Monday slate in the NBA. I don't even know the date, the 28th, the 29th, somewhere around there. But we're going to check out this Monday slate in the NBA. We're going to break it down like we always do. I'm going to go through the data. If this is your first time here, my name is Sal Vetri. And basically what I'm doing here is showing you guys how I approach the early morning at least, because obviously through the day things change like we saw yesterday with a ton of news, Kyrie Irving, and just the whole slate changes. So a lot of this data could change, right? And it probably does change. But at least for the early look, give you guys a mindset of what the slate looks like in terms of from injuries, Vegas, pace, and some other things like defense versus position, and then just a new sheet that we added yesterday's video, just kind of figuring out value, usage rates, things like that, and what they are. So really teaching you guys how to build a lineup. This isn't, I know the thing says picks on it, that's just because that ranks better in YouTube. I want to get this out there to as many people as possible. But it's not really picks. I'm going to show you players that I have early interest in, but I'm not saying take them and use them. It's your money at the end of the day. Things change throughout the day, so a lot of these plays in the whole slate potentially could change, and most of the times it might. But still, there's a lot of value in this video. We've been getting great feedback, and if you've been enjoying these videos, please let me know in the comments below if you're a returning person, returning subscriber. I appreciate you so much. This channel has been growing at a rapid rate. We are now over 2,000 subscribers. Going to try and think of a giveaway to give out around 2,500. We're going at like 200 subscribers a day. If we can somehow get a bump and get up to like 2,500 in the next few days, that's absolutely incredible. So appreciate it. If at any point during this video you can hit that like button, helps us rank higher, get more people in the community, and also subscribe if you haven't already throughout the video. Once you see that you've been given some sort of value, don't just subscribe because I'm saying that. Let me show you that I can bring you guys value. That's what I want to do here. Again, all totally free. So what we're going to do today is we're going to get into this slate. And I mean, we're going to start, this is the Draftkings, obviously, site. We'll go to it a little bit, maybe build a lineup at the end. Haven't really been doing that just because I want these videos to be somewhat digestible in like a 30-minute format. Maybe we'll build one or first look at the end. But I'm going to go right over to the sheet, right? And here's the most important sheet that you guys have to be starting with. If it's not mine, it's somewhere, is the injury news. And again, I do this at around 8 a.m., 7 a.m. some days, depending. It's about 2 hours of research, finding all the injuries and all the other stats. For like an average game slate like tonight, which is a 7-game slate, I think we only have one team playing on a back-to-back tonight. That's the Nets, if I am right on that one. And it takes a lot of time, so put a lot of effort into this. I hope you guys do appreciate that for sure. But the injury news is the biggest one. So it seems like LeBron's doubtful for tonight. I highlighted the ones that I think are the biggest pieces, usually around 3 to 5 each night. I think Kuzma's one of the biggest pieces. We saw he was out last game, and there was just a huge usage bump for a guy like Ingram, who dropped about 40 Draftkings points. So he's going to be impacted. Hart might get inserted into that starting lineup. And I put Zubac on there. It doesn't directly impact him based on position, but it does impact his usage a little bit and his utilization, especially if he starts, which, by the way, he's performing. He should continue to start. We can see that Josh Hart's questionable, so there could be some things there with Lance Stevenson, with Beasley, and players like that. Joel Embiid, Jimmy Butler, and Wilson Chandler, all probable today. Jimmy Butler had some problems with his wrist. He saw a specialist. There was some worry there, but it just seemed like it was sprained or just a little bummed up. Should be probable. So that definitely, like we saw Ben Simmons chalk night the other night, is going to reduce some Ben Simmons ownership. And Embiid back in a good situations, which we'll talk about for sure. Wilson Chandler I put on there. I'm trying to put as many guys on these injury reports as possible. Him being back, it does affect people, right? It affects Bolden. It's going to affect Redick's usage a little bit. Jimmy Butler's going to do that a little bit more, but it is going to affect that. With Jimmy Butler back, obviously Corey Brewer's probably going to be moving out of the starting lineup, and it's going to affect guys such as McConnell, who was also in that starting lineup, just the way that the schedule's, the roster's going to go, and JJ Redick's also going to see less shots probably in this game. The second biggest piece of news on the day, and we don't have to wait for it because it seems like DeAndre Ayton's going to be out based on the fact that, I should really stop moving this, but based on the fact that he's doubtful today with an ankle. We saw Rashawn Holmes. I late swapped to Rashawn Holmes in that last game and Zubac in my cash game lineups. They seemed like they were just going to break even lose some money. And Rashawn Holmes at like 3% owned goes for 40 points. Zubac smashed with like a 50-point game. So that was the best late swap I've ever done, for sure. And that's why late swap matters, right? Changing players, keeping up on top of your lineups. But Rashawn Holmes is just a beast when he's out there on a point-per-minute basis. Just a rebounding beast. He's athletic. He can move up to the point. Not controlling the ball, but he can go and he could stretch the floor, right? So Rashawn Holmes is definitely a great play today if indeed that Ayton's out, and make sure that Rashawn Holmes is starting at the 5. I can't see him starting anywhere else, but he does have power forward eligibility. So if he is starting at the 5, you can get another center in your lineup by putting him at the power forward or that forward position on DraftKings. Again, center is the absolute best position. with point guard as well. They're the two best positions on DraftKings due to the fact that you get bonuses for things like doubles, and assists come more so from the point guard, rebounds come more so from the center, and also points are just easier for a center because they can get easy putbacks, they can get 2-3 foot shots. So that's definitely where you want to be targeting some of those utility spots. Really, centers, point guards, shooting guards don't do too much for you because they're shooters. They're going to just score primarily. You need them to go for like 25 plus, like a Klay Thompson, like a Tim Hardaway Jr. Maybe not so much Tim Hardaway, but like a Klay Thompson. DeMar DeRozan, we got the news yesterday that he's out. It's going to be just insane usage right now for a guy like LaMarcus Aldridge. We saw it a few nights ago, and he went for like 55 plus points. Aldridge, I posted it, and it's right here. I posted it on Twitter. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. I post things daily. His usage rate is 34.1 with DeRozan off the floor. Again, that's a big number. If you're seeing anything in the 30s, that's a big number. That means he's basically touching the ball more than a third of the time on their when he's on the court. So that's insane in all their possessions. Rudy Gay is going to get a bump. Disappointed a lot of people, including myself, 2 nights back. But he still get a bump, and he's at a good price. And then Bellinelli's going to see a little bit of uptick with DeMar DeRozan out. You could also say some other guys, the point guards, they'll see a couple more shots, like Forbes, like White. Definitely big news. Other than that, I mean, we have Julius Randle questionable. Julius Randle and Kuzma, since we don't know their situations, are the biggest things to keep an eye on as of right now. With Julius Randle questionable, I mean, if he's in, he's a smash play in this situation. I think he's way too cheap at $7,800. We'll get into that. And if he doesn't play, you're going to have some more value opening up. You're going to have a guy like Drew Holiday, whose usage rate's already through the roof. With Randle, it'll go even higher through the roof. Really, the offense goes through Drew Holiday. You're going to have a guy like Okafor at the center, at the 5 position, getting a little bit more usage, definitely more rebounds and shot attempts. Solomon Hill might start. Not crazy on a guy like Solomon Hill. I'm very not in favor of him, but again, he might start. And if he does start at a cheap price point, he's always a value play to get you maybe 25, 30 points potentially. Outside of that, Etuan Moore's out, so again, that helps some of those Pelican guys, and Mirotic is still out. Just put that on there to remind people. Ish Smith is out, and Reggie Bullock is doubtful. I really don't like any of the backcourt for this Detroit team. So Stanley Johnson's going to probably see a start if indeed Bullock does sit, which it seems like he will. So at his value price at like the 3,000 range, he's a good play, I would say, as of right now. We have to see how the slate shapes out. And then Reggie Bullock should probably see a little bit of minutes bump with Ish Smith still out. We've seen it for the past week or so, a little bit more. So yeah, that's the injury news. Really just Kuzma and Julius Randle I'm waiting on personally. Maybe Josh Hart a little bit. And then seeing what this Rashawn Holmes should be starting and seeing how it's going to shake out with DeMar DeRozan. Once again, out of the lineup, we can kind of project some of those things. Ladies and gents, I'm just going to stop by 1 second. I got to put a little ad in here for who's sponsoring this video today. It's Draft Dashboard. And actually, you might have been using Draft Dashboard for NFL. They just reduce your research time. They have ownership projections. They have projections in general. A lot of cool things. They have an NBA cheat sheet. And I've just started using them again for NBA, and it's actually really good. So we're going to look right here. This is just a position optimizer quickly. You can see you have projections, you have the value that we've been talking about, you have ownership usage percentage, which again we've been talking about how important, ownership projections, and they're out early. This is something new they just added. Lots of value right here on this page. I'm not even going to lie. Compared to what they had for NFL, they've added a lot, like we've said, ownership. In NBA, you need to look at a lot of things such as usage. Last 3 minutes usage is very important to see how they're being used late in the game. So a lot of stuff right here to use. What you can do is you can just save players into a player pool if you like Harden, if you like Drew, whoever it is. Then you can go to your watch players and you can create just little lineup optimizers to try and take some of your biases out of the equation when you're building lineups. I've used it before. It is very simple, user-friendly, but it's becoming more advanced. So I do like it a lot. The other thing to look at is the NBA cheat sheet. This is just if you're in a bind, if you do want to just kind of look at players quickly. There's locks, best plays of the days here based on their situations. These can change throughout the day, so make sure to keep an eye on that for news-wise. Studs, things like that, mid-range, and then some values that are in here. They have all this. So, I mean, don't just plug and place these guys, but if you've been doing some research and you like it as well, it's a good way to kind of verify what you're doing, or if you're in a bind, kind of just quickly glance at it and then build your lineups from there. So yeah, that's what Draft Dashboard is. There's 30 days for $1, so it's a promotion that I have if you use my link below. Getting you guys a promotion code for sure is what I've been trying to aim to do with any type of advertisements now that these videos are getting a little more push. So that was a quick little minute and a half ad. This is Draft Dashboard. This cheat sheet's nice. The optimizer's nice, and the fact that they added ownership makes me want to use it even more. I could personally say that it's good based on the value you're getting out of it. And again, try it for 30 days for $1. Link down below. Let's jump back into this video that I probably just cut myself off doing. So, peace. Let's move on now to Vegas. So Vegas, it's been interesting. I mean, some things might have popped out by now, but These ones that are highlighted in yellow, I'm projecting those totals. I'm projecting them a few ways, just points per game. And then I'm trying to consider pace into that as well. So obviously, the points per game are going to be higher if two faster-paced teams, or at least one faster-paced team, is on the court. So this is what we have from Vegas, and I could highlight all the over/unders in yellow real quick. So this is what we have from Vegas, and I'll put these ones in green, just meaning the green's just going to mean they're sort of tentative, because I'm kind of projecting all of these down here for the most part. Again, this could be not right at all. I do believe that this Lakers game, since they're one of the fastest-paced teams in the league, and Phoenix is not one of the slowest-paced, they're also in that top half, is going to see closer to that 230 mark. 228 is where their points per game would project them at. But yeah, you can see, I mean, there's a decent amount of games around that 220 or higher total that I like to target. You can see OKC as a favorite in the 220 range. You can see the huge total, and the one that's standing off the slate, 234, with Houston being a 10-point underdog, or a 10-point favorite here with Chris Paul back now. Obviously, the Pelicans are just completely beat up, so that's why you're seeing that big difference. They're missing like 3 of their starters potentially if Randall sits today. So 234.5 is a huge total. If this game stays close, it's going to be the game that I'm going to be primarily targeting. I like a lot of pieces on the Pelicans, especially for value plays. James Harden is still very expensive with Chris Paul in there, but he's still going to provide a lot of value. So those are just things to keep an eye on. These are the totals for today. Again, you guys can screenshot these. Always want to incorporate Vegas, because their projected higher totals mean that there's going to be more points in the game, which means more assists, rebounds, points, double-doubles, triple-double potential for your players. So that's Vegas. Next, on to pace, and I factored a different thing into my pace equations, and I think now it's much more representative. I was looking at it, and it wasn't a good representation the past few weeks. It was a good representation, meaning that you were still getting the highest paced teams to pop up here, and you guys were using the highest paced teams still, but the possessions per game just weren't as accurate as they could be. So what pace is just possessions per game. The more possessions per game, and I say this every time, but we're getting a lot of new people watching these videos. Possessions per game just means that there's going to be more possessions per game, more opportunities to shoot the ball, rebound, assist, all those things. So games with a higher pace, meaning they just play faster, you kind of want to target, because they're usually ones with a higher total, so it's easy, but sometimes it could be a little different than that, right? So what I did for the projected game pace, usually I would just add up each team's pace. So for the Lakers in Philadelphia, you have the pace of 105.8 for the Lakers. For Philly, 104.3. I usually would just add them up and divide them by 2, but I realized that's not good, because if two faster-paced teams are playing each other, odds are there's going to be a couple more possessions per game. So what I did was found the league average for pace, and I kind of just incorporated that into it. So basically what you're getting here is a much better look at what the pace is for these games projected-wise. So this is per team, right? So 110.6 is per team possession. So if we doubled that, it'd be about 221 possessions is what this Lakers-Philadelphia game is looking like. By far the biggest on the slate. You could see over 4 possessions, or it's projecting over 4.5 possessions more, I believe, yes, than any other game on this slate per team, right? So that's like 8 in the entire game. So definitely a faster pace can be played there. That's usually what we see out of the Lakers, who I believe are still ranked number 2. I'm using this data on like a per every 3 to 5 days then I'm refreshing it. So if you're using another site or something that says the Lakers are now number 3 or something, that's the only reason why. So this is like a day or 2 or 3 old. It's just so that I don't have to refresh it daily. It takes about 2 hours right now to do all this research. Trying to get better with Excel. I know it decently, but nowhere near expert level. Trying to get better with it, so instead of taking 2 hours on this research, it could be taking a half hour. These videos get out sooner, whatever it might be. So if you know anything really good about Excel, please do reach out, because I got a lot of data here, and I got to crunch it every day, and it takes a while. It's fun, but it just means that I'm not doing other things that I could be doing, right? All about efficiency. So once again, mic check 1 2 1 2. We're good to go. All right, so that's pace, right? I mean, you can see some high-pace games. Usually you want to target a pace per game of over 100, and now with this, and that's if you're just dividing the average. So I would say around like 102 from what you're looking at right now. And if we do look at this, every game is right around that mark, right? That's just the way the NBA is these days. I would say with these new updated pace projections that I'm using with a new equation that I believe are a lot more realistic of what you're going to see, especially if you go back and you look at the past games. I personally would be targeting games now around that 103 or higher mark, potentially if there's many on the game. Obviously, the top 3, really. There's not really a mark at this point. I mean, you can cancel out anything below like a 103, or not cancel it out. There's still value plays and good players in those games. But if you're talking about game stacking, playing multiple players from one game, you want to look at these ones where your player's going to have a potential to have 6 more possessions per game, potential to have 5 more shots, whatever, 6 more total rebounds if you have 3 players in the game, things like that. So that's pace. That's just the addition that I did to it. So yeah, let's go to target offense. So target offense, the numbers in green mean that team is bad against that specific position, and this is based on fantasy points, DraftKings fantasy points. So if you're looking on another site, I've gotten this question, they might base it on something else. They might base it on just defensive efficiency. I'm basing it off of DraftKings fantasy points because it's very specific to what we're trying to accomplish here in DraftKings. Defensive efficiency is good, and that technically kind of goes into this, but this is just looking at Fantasy Pros DraftKings rankings based on points given up. So you can see I highlighted the bottom 10 teams, or the bottom 10 teams are the single-digit teams, the teams that are in that top 9, top 10 range at defending the position in red, so you can kind of see that quicker. And then in green is the teams that are pretty bad at defending that position. Again, not much to go into a ton of detail here to try and break this down for you guys. It's pretty much you guys can look at it because I'm going to get into that on these early interests. But you guys can see that like right here. You are just getting like 29th against the shooting guard. Is that what the Lakers are? So Philadelphia, who's their shooting guard? A guy like Jimmy Butler. So that's a good position to look at. Don't just go off of that and plug them in. There's more to look at, but in terms of early interest, that's a good way to look. Now that I'm thinking about this, okay, yeah, so I didn't fill in for today the defense first position. That is my fault. I was in a cafe at Panera, so maybe not a cafe, sort of a cafe. What is Panera? Who knows? But I was in a Panera Bread because they open at 6 until around 8:30ish, just working on this stuff, and then I had to run home to shoot this because I usually have like an hour and a half gap when my roommate goes to class. So it was on the schedule. Didn't put in. I know I didn't put in the team total. I wasn't going to do that anyways because it's on a lot of other spots. What I would do is I will fill in the defensive verse position, so it's a lot easier to look at. For now, you guys can just look over here. I apologize for that for today. But for the most part, a lot of these guys I have notes on, or I have a reason as to why I'm playing them, whether it is injuries or if it is defense versus position. So for you guys listening right now, we moved over to the players of interest page for the guards, and I have this broken up by guard, and I might break it up. I've gotten a question about their eligibility on DraftKings. I think that's a good thing, but in terms of just breaking it up as guards, it's much easier to differentiate where players are going to start that night. It can get flip-flopped and just kind of cancels out a lot of questions. So in terms of guards, and obviously everybody's available in the utility spot, these are the guys that I have early interest on. So early interest meaning that they just intrigue me early on, matchup-wise, injury-wise, value-wise. They're a little underpriced, things like that. So what we have on this slate, or on this page, is all the guards that I'm interested in early on. We have their salaries, their DraftKings points per minute, and their DraftKings points per minute. Some of these guys I ended up projecting, so I either just projected them based on a few things and where I think that total is going to be, based on some numbers in an equation I'm trying to develop, or I used their past 10 days points per game averaged with their season points per game. If there's somebody who has just seen like a different type of usage lately, such as a guy like Drew Holiday with Anthony Davis out and Mirotić out. So you can see those guys are highlighted in this orangey pink beige color. We have the usage rates on there. Some of these usage rates are also projected. The majority of them are not, but again, you're going to have different usage rates with guys off the court and things like that. I use NBA Wowie for that. It's really good usage rate. Again, just how often they're being utilized and touching the ball. Defensive burst position is something that I have to add, and I will add into the other ones. Minutes per game, a lot of these are just based off their average minutes per game, but I did go ahead and project some of them that would see a bump today due to injury and things like that. Points per minute is then just taking their points on the season, dividing it by the minutes that they play, and you're going to get a points per minute. Anything over 1 is usually good, especially if they're a value play. Anything approaching the 1.5 range is just smash, and they're probably a very expensive player on DraftKings. So I've gotten some questions about value, and the way that you should be doing value when you're equating it is you take your fantasy points per game projections, so like what you're projecting a player for, you divide it by their salary for that day, then divide it by 1,000, and you get a number between like usually 4 and 6, 4 and 5 for the most part. That's not the way I'm doing it right now, and I'm trying as we keep moving forward and learning, and I get as much free time as I can, because I wasn't expecting to do a video a day on NBA. I've been having fun with it, so I'm going to try to keep it up, but might be scaling it back to like 3 a week, 4 a week, instead of 7 a week, so I can figure out things like how to make this data better for you guys, how to promote myself better in the DFS space, just all that type of stuff. Also, it's 17 minutes into the video. If you're still watching right now, drop down in the comments down below. Tell me you're watching at the 17-minute mark. I want to say thank you. I appreciate that a ton. And also, right now, I'm going to put this into earlier part of the video. Actually, I'll do that later on. We're going to do a little ad around, you've already seen it if you're watching, for Draft Dashboard. So, what value is, for what I've been doing, it is based on the DraftKings points per game for the entire season. Again, some of those will be averaged for their past 10 games plus the season. Then dividing it by their salary and things like that to get this value. So this isn't going to be the same as some other websites, and it's pretty close. It'll be off by, like, instead of 5.2, like a 5.1 or 5.34. Like, it'll be off very slightly. It'll still be a good representation, especially since they're all using the same equation. So relative to everybody else, you'll see where the value is. But I would like to actually project players' points moving forward. That's just something that I have to learn more about and get more time to do. So this is still good. I use this personally, so there's nothing like wrong with the data. But yeah, these are the guys that I like. I think Drew Holiday's in an absolutely smash spot, especially if Randall sits. He's even better. Thomas Satoransky, if we go back to the target offense for Washington playing Cleveland, he's in a spot where he's playing the 28th defense in the Cavaliers. He's going to be going up today against guys like Colin Sexton, terrible defender, guys like Alec Burks, who haven't even been on the floor that much. I think he's in a good spot. He's always been a guy who's a sneaky play. And nobody likes him because he's Thomas Satoransky. He just doesn't pass the eye test, but he continues to provide value for people. Chris Paul coming back today, under 7,000. I think he's a little bit too cheap for a guy who's been averaging 37 points per game when he does play. D'Angelo Russell, I think he's in an interesting spot. I mean, this guy, if we scroll over with Dinwiddie and LeVert out, his usage rate's around 31%. Again, anything over 30% should be catching your eye. You should be saying that's incredible. I mean, Russell Westbrook has that same type of usage rate. It doesn't always add out to being the same production, but just means the same opportunities. Rajon Rondo, he played in like 42 minutes, 30-something minutes the day before, right off an injury, and there was a report that said he feels as good as he has ever felt, and there's no reason that he needs any more rest. He has fresh legs. He said some of the freshest legs that he's had in his career. That's insane. So I like him a lot at 6,700. Then these other guys are just guys that, again, early interest, nothing really pops. I mean, matchup is why Evan Fournier's on here, and I think he's a little underpriced at 5,500. And by a little, I mean very little. Maybe he should be around 58, 59. Reggie Jackson, somebody I never like to play because the upside in tournaments is just hard to find. But Ish Smith out again, Reggie Bullock out. So in that backcourt, he's really the only guy going to be handling the ball for the most part. Alec Burks and Rodney Hood both have really good matchups. Both are super cheap. Burks has been seeing a lot more minutes lately, especially at the point guard position. So I think it's a good spot for him. He's getting good usage when he's in the game as well. Ben Simmons at $9,000 is somebody I added a little bit later. And again, these aren't in any order. This is just as I go through DraftKings, as I go through some data and I find players, I put them in here. $9,000 I think is a little much, especially with Butler and Embiid coming back. But I do think his ownership is going to be severely depressed. So it is a good spot for him with a high usage rate like he usually has, even with those guys on the floor. Maybe he is a tiny bit overpriced, but at the same time, you could argue that he's not, just based on where his ownership will come in at. So, same thing here. I didn't do the DVPs, but for power forward position, all the same type of data you're seeing here. Again, I emphasize the value, the usage rate, points per minute is big, especially if you're trying to do projections. If you have a points per minute, this is kind of how you could do projections, and I'm trying to get it down a little bit better. You figure out a guy's points per minute. They could be a season average. They could be, there's an injury, so you're going to bump up. You're going to take some of the guy who was injured's points per minute. You take those, and you divide them by you multiply them by the amount of minutes you project that player to play. Again, you find the amount of minutes somebody's going to play based on what the season has looked like, based on how the team splits up their minutes between two centers, and if another center's out, you kind of just give those minutes to somebody else, something like that. But again, based on the research I'm doing right now and stuff, I would need a lot more time to do that. Once I figure it out, it should be easy. Just can't get it into here right now. But saying that, that's sort of like advanced stuff. This stuff, again, early look, this is absolutely fine. I use it. Julius Randle, if he plays smash play, going to be one of the highest owned guys in the day, as he should be at only 7,800. He's going to be a guy who has 50-point upside. I'm going to like a lot. Giannis, he's always going to be in play for me. Just his usage rate in that team, the amount that he can score, putting up 60 whenever he wants, is incredible. Stanley Johnson, we talked about at $3,200. I'm projecting him for 20 points in this game. I've seen some other projections, and that's about right where people have him, 18 to 21. That's nothing crazy, but at $3,200, if it lets you fit in an extra Giannis piece or something like that, it doesn't kill you for sure. He's 6xing plus value there. Darius Miller, not somebody I like to play because I don't think the ceiling's there. I really don't think the floor is there either, but at 3,700, he has to at least intrigue you early on. Brandon Ingram and Kuzma. So if both of them play, as of right now, I lean towards Kuzma just because he does seem to just get more utilization. Ingram does have a slightly higher usage rate with guys like LeBron and Lonzo off the floor, though. Rudy Gay at $5,900, I still love this price. I don't think he should be below $6,000. He's a guy that I would project today to see over 30 points, closer to 35 points if I had to project it just off of a number, right? So at $6,000 or sub 6K, that's completely fine. That's going to get you there. Cedi Osman at $5,200. He's been playing really well as of late. You see 29.1 That's a projection that I've done over his past 10 games and the season, as well as it's in line with a lot of other websites and things like that. Usage rate not there, but he has been shooting well. He has been getting rebounds. He's been starting at the power forward. Obviously, this only is if he starts, and then Larry Nance is on the bench. Zizic is on the center spot. Eric Gordon at $5,000. His price has come down a ton. He could be a sneaky play with Chris Paul back today. Not a lot of people looking at him. $5,000 for a guy who's averaging over 25 DraftKings points on the season. Yes, Chris Paul wasn't in there for a good amount of those, but still is a value play for sure. Should see potentially around 25 points tonight, closer to 30, I would think. Aaron Gordon, just like him a lot, just like the amount of minutes that he plays on there, and he's always a guy to threaten for a double-double. Hollis Jefferson came out. He played really well last night at $3,800. Got the start late. I tried to get him into some lineups, and I just couldn't get the crunch in time. But I don't think he'll play, or I think he'll play decent minutes, maybe again closer to 23, 24 minutes tonight. But he will have to average about a point per minute or better for that to actually pay off for you. So we'll have to see. I'm a little hesitant on that, but again, he's $3,800. I like Josh Jackson. I like Chris Middleton. I like Jeremy Grant. Jeremy Grant plays a ton of minutes, and if he could just average close to a point per minute, which he has been doing for the better part of the past month or so, I think he's a good play. Chris Middleton's a nice pivot off of a guy like Giannis. Still sees a ton of usage. Still sees a ton of usage for one. Still sees close to 30 minutes, if not more, per game. His average is 31.1. Again, these are all good plays for here. If you want to just look based on value, you can see Hollis Jefferson is super cheap. And again, he is super cheap. If he's going to be a consistent starter for a guy who's going to get you rebounds on a team that can't really rebound well, when he comes back, he's going to get more rebounds. Just that's the way it's going to work. $3,800 is a little too cheap. I think he's closer to a $4,500 player right now. That's a big discount, potentially a good value play tonight. Let's move over to center now, guys, and girls. Center, it's pretty small for me here. You see I put JoJo in there. So Embiid's got a good spot, 10-2. It's a lot of money, but 10-2 against this defense that he's going to be going up against in this high total game, potentially high total game. Zubac is going to have a hard time with him. That's why I hesitate to put Zubac on this list, really, because he's going to have a hard time with Embiid. Embiid's like nobody he's faced yet. So I think Embiid's the best pay-up option on this slate. Giannis is right there for me as well, but I just love Embiid's matchup, and just the versatility is just insane with this guy. I mean, he can go in a half for 15 and 10 in a half, and he's done it before. Rashawn Holmes, probably overall my favorite play on the slate. Too cheap. Should be around 53 to 5,500. Seems like he's going to be starting today. Let's see his matchup as well. I think it was good. So if we go to Phoenix, San Antonio, offensive target, Phoenix, San Antonio, and I thought wrong. So not a great matchup, actually. He's going up against guys like, well, it depends who starts, right? So this number could be inflated because we've seen Pau Gasol getting the start but only playing 10 minutes. So it does depend who starts there, because if we're going to have Aldridge at the 4 at the power forward spot, then that's fine because he won't see a ton of Rashawn Holmes, right? So I'm not too worried about that. At $4,700, he's just great value. I have him projected to see around 30 points tonight. And again, this is just off of a few things, benchmarking it with some other websites. I'm trying to sharpen up these projections and things like that. Kenneth Faried continues to just be underpriced. I think he's getting closer to where he should be. Don't think he should be touching the 7K range. I think at $6,300 is pretty fairly priced. $6,500 is where I probably would have him. Still just been a big part of this offense. Now with Chris Paul back, we have to see will his utilization and usage be down. I still think that might help him because Chris Paul is going to be feeding him even more assists than Harden was already. Aldridge with DeRozan off, we already said it. He gets like a 34% usage rate with DeRozan off. I like Aldridge a lot. We saw it 2 nights ago. He came out and smashed, and he's still below 9K. Guy who's probably going to be putting up close to 50 points tonight at $8,700. That's more than 5X. That's value. Robin Lopez, depends if he starts. If he doesn't start, I like Bobby Portis a little bit here. Lopez is nothing spectacular. Again, just based on his price of $4,000. If he does start at the 5, it does help. I don't see him playing a ton of minutes. Probably won't even touch 20 minutes. But again, somebody to put an early interest on. Ante Zizic, we're going to put him back on here. It's only if Larry Nance Jr. doesn't start for some reason at the 5. I think Zizic is in a good spot. I think he's pretty appropriately priced for a guy who's just been getting around 30 points. So you're not getting any savings there. But definitely an interest for sure. Jared Allen, a guy that I like a lot here. I think he should be, maybe as the day goes on, a little bit higher owned. 5,600, good usage. Jaleel Okafor, we talked about all the injuries there. I never loved playing Jaleel Okafor, but he has been producing over the past 10-game span when we've seen Davis out, as well as when we've seen Randall out. So, that was it. If you're still watching, let me know down below. Again, some of this data is going to be continuously sharpened up. I might be reducing the amount of videos that I do per week. Not to say I'm not going to be doing videos, but 7 videos a week could be a little tough moving forward. I'm going to try and keep it up as long as I can. But if I get a new laptop, that would help. So, yeah. Thank you guys for watching. Best of luck tonight. Let me know if you're still watching. And if you are, comment down below, like the video, and subscribe if you haven't, because you just spent 28 minutes of your life watching this, so must have been somewhat useful for you. Hope everything's saved. The mic was on. We know that. We get the mic check 2 1 2. Oh, I don't even know what sound like this. I got to check again. But anyways, thank you so much. Appreciate your support. Peace.